name is Erica, relationship therapist and dating coach, and welcome back inside another episode. Today, I want to talk about the number one thing that anxiously attached people are told to do. And I want to dive deeper into this concept because I think it can feel a little overwhelming. As someone who has been on my healing journey now for the past decade, this concept felt a little abstract to me when I first started healing. And I think this reframe is going to be helpful for you. So, the first, most number one thing that anxiously attached people are advised to do is to bring your attention back to yourself, to stop focusing on them and start focusing on you, right? To focus your attention on reconnecting back to you. And when we hear that, it's like, okay, great. Let me stop focusing on them and start focusing on me. However, there's a problem with that. Number one, two problems actually. Number one, it feels very uncomfortable to focus on ourselves and not on the other person because as anxiously attached people, we have been conditioned to focus our energy outside of ourselves because it is through other people that we learned we will find our sense of self, our sense of security, our sense of enoughness. So to tell me to start focusing or to tell you to start focusing on yourself and stop focusing on the other person, you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That's not how I learned to show up in the world. That's not how I learned to relate. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that when you are told reconnect back to yourself, that can feel really weighty too, because you've spent so much of your time, like I was saying, externally focused on the other person that who the self is, who are you when you're not focusing on someone else, is a really overwhelming thing to think about. Who am I? Right. And I want to talk about who makes up this self, this you that you've been ignoring and betraying and abandoning. And I say that with love over the years because you learned to focus all of your energy on the other person. So let's back it up to the first thing that I want to focus on when it comes to this process of turning your attention finally towards yourself instead of focusing on the other person. Like I was saying, it may feel very uncomfortable. It will feel very uncomfortable to do that because when you experience attachment trauma, when you experience a break or a bond in, I'm sorry, a break in the bond between you and the person who's responsible for taking care of you, it feels very unsettling. And when I say a break in the bond, what I mean is your parent is supposed to be there for you on a consistent basis to meet your needs, to meet your core needs, to make you feel safe, seen, and um, loved, right? If you don't feel safe, seen, and secure with the person who's responsible for taking care of you, you as a child don't get the chance to simply focus on being yourself and developing a sense of self, a sense of who am I? Because you're too focused on how do I get this other person outside of me to make me feel safe and secure and seen and meet my needs because I need to live, I need to survive, and they are my source for that. And so when we're anxiously attached and our parent is disconnected from us emotionally or physically, all of our energy starts to be exerted on how do I get this person to meet my needs? How do I feel connected to them? How do I rebuild the bond? And as anxiously attached people, we often learn things like through our environment. The messaging isn't always this overt messaging, it's much more covert. But we learn things like, I better hide my needs. Because if I express my need, if I say how I feel, if I start crying, if I start taking up too much space, I'm going to get yelled at. I'm going to get invalidated. I'm going to get shamed. I'm going to get told I'm needy or I'm too much. I'm going to get told, go to my room. Don't worry about that. You're being a baby. Right. And so we learn at a very young age what parts of ourselves are okay and what parts of ourselves are going to lead to feeling more connected and what parts of ourselves are not okay and what parts of ourselves we should hide and minimize to secure and ensure a relationship and a connection to our parent or caregiver. So, going back to the start of all of this, right? When you are feeling like you want to start focusing your energy and attention inward for the first time, and you've been conditioned to be hyper vigilant to mom, dad, caregiver, because you need to know what kind of mood they are in today. Are they going to meet my needs today? What is their tone? Where are they? Are they available to me? When you've been conditioned to be hyper vigilant and super aware of other people in order to feel secure, it feels very unsettling to start tuning your attention inward, to start focusing on yourself, right? Because you didn't learn that that was a safe thing to do. You didn't learn that that was going to make you feel more connected, make you feel like the relationship was more secure, to make you feel more bonded, right? Tuning inward to yourself was not something that you learned was going to be a pro or a positive when it comes to building relationships. So, this is about showing your nervous system that it's safe to tune inward, that it's safe to focus less on how are they going to feel about what I want to say, and start focusing more simply on what is it that I want to say, and helping your nervous system feel through your presence that no matter this person's response or feeling toward what I have to say, I am going to figure out how to be there for myself, how to keep myself feeling safe and secure, so that regardless of their response, my priority finally in this life is to focus more on what it is that I want to say and less on how they're going to respond to it. I'll get to that later. I'll get to that next. But my first priority is, what do I want to say? What do I think? Right? Which really segues into part two of this, which is when you are finally focusing your energy on yourself and tuning your attention inward and reconnecting to you and all of the parts of yourself that you learned you had to minimize, betray, abandon in order to feel safe and secure in your relationships. I really like to look at yourself as these core parts, and you can write these down: your feelings, your needs, your boundaries, your preferences, and your values, right? And we could say beliefs too, your beliefs. So, six core things: your feelings, your needs, your boundaries, your preferences, your values, and your beliefs. These six core elements are the parts of yourself, the self, that you learned were not okay, right? You learned if I have a need, I'm going to get yelled at, for example. So you learn to disconnect from this part of yourself. So when we're talking about finally tuning your attention inward to the self that you are, these are the six parts of yourself that I want you to start connecting to. Because if you aren't connected to these parts of yourself, these parts of who you are, your identity, then of course a person cannot feel secure within themselves if they don't know themselves, right? How can you feel secure about something that you don't know, right? And how can I feel like these parts of myself are worthy and deserving of being expressed if I don't even know what they are? How can I love myself if I don't even really know these core parts of myself? So that's why, one of the big problems with all of the like self-love um stuff out there, it's a wonderful concept, of course, to say love yourself, but I think that can feel super overwhelming to somebody who's new on this healing journey. I want you to just start with know yourself. Let's know who you are. Let's start to like these parts of yourself. Let's start to accept these parts of yourself, because as a child, you learned it wasn't okay to accept these parts of yourself. So if you can't even accept these parts of yourself, it's going to be really difficult to feel worthy of these parts. It's going to feel really difficult to feel that you, the self, are worthy in general, because you don't feel as though these needs, these feelings, these boundaries are worthy and deserving of taking up space. So that is the work that I want you to begin to focus on, is highlighting for yourself, what are my needs? What are my preferences? Just in a day, I prefer to put cream in my coffee. I prefer to brush my teeth before I wash my face. I prefer to um, wind down at the end of the day by reading a book and have the lights off by 10 p.m. What are your preferences? When you begin to take the time to just slow down and get to know these parts of yourself, you'll start to organically begin to feel more secure within yourself. And if you want some guidance with this, I have a workbook. It's called the Securely Attached Workbook. I'll include it in the notes below so that you can jump in. But this is really a practice, right? When we have spent so much of our lives externally focused on other people, it is a practice to begin to finally tune our attention inward and start to know the self, all of these parts of ourselves that we've become disconnected from. So I hope this has been helpful and that you have gotten some key takeaways, and I will see you in the next session.